redhead in charge. For a fellow redhead, you probably get that, yes. And what I do is work with really high-performing business owners and even executives to really help them play bigger and up-level their game. I love to grow and scale businesses or whatever you're doing personally. So let's jump in, because today is something new. I've been working on it with clients, but I figured let's roll it out as something that I'm going to actually teach more live, which is called Dominate. And what I've given you there is a handout where you can take notes on it. There's just if you look in there, there's a place for insights, ahas, and ideas, and then we're going to have 4 core pillars that we're going to dive into. And of course, as always, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of homework, because if we don't take action on what we learn, what the hell good is it? So let's dive right in. So first I'm going to talk about what I have experienced with a lot of clients and even people that I've just casually encountered, or even colleagues that I have, and what stops business owners. Well, there seems to be a handful of things that actually are stopping business owners from making that next step or growing that business or finding those clients, because that's the number one question I'm always hearing. And I don't care whether it's an established business or it's a business in a competitive market, or it's one that's already thriving, but like, how the heck do I get to that next level? Same question, how do I get more clients? Which is a great question, but it really comes down to a lot more of what you're doing, and we need to ask other questions. So the things I've noticed is that there's either no list or the 2 biggies. I hate marketing or I suck at sales. That's really 2 biggies that I always hear. The other thing that I noticed is that you're trying to be everywhere because that's what people tell you. Or you're selling from a place of weakness, and we'll talk about what that means. My favorite, the spray and pray method. Oh yeah, don't we always hear it's always a numbers game? Well, I'm going to call bullshit on that, because the numbers game cannot just be about the numbers. I don't care if you have 1 million people on your list. If you can't convert but 1%, what the hell good is that? Really, truly, I would rather have a small, core, thriving group that you can sell to, because you can make $1 million from a really tiny list. And build it, another favorite from that stupid movie, build it and they will come. No, they will not come, especially today, because we are in such a hyper-competitive and extremely noisy network. So the thing is, it's never been easier to start a business. Yay! Bad news, it's never been easier to start a business. So we're entirely cluttered, and that's what's making it really difficult. So what I find, though, is underneath all of this, there's 2 real problems. And the number one thing is fear. We like to package it up as a lot of excuses and other things, and we need another tip, trick, tactic, whatever, but the reality is, when it all really comes down to it, it's fear at some level. And then 2, because we think we need these tips, tricks, tactics, those are resources, people. But what you really have is a resourcefulness problem that feeds right into the fear. We don't really have time to unpack all that, which I've done a whole thing on. But I do want to bring it to your attention so that it's something that you have to pay attention to, because unless you get this right, the rest of whatever else I teach you doesn't matter. So I would encourage you to go look at that. 2, what do the so-called experts tell us? Oh, I love this, these gurus. And my favorite saying is, screw the gurus, because what do they tell us? Digital marketing, it's the holy grail. You just need digital marketing and it's going to fix everything. Thanks for playing. 2, you do have to be everywhere. This is my favorite from Gary Vee, and I do love some of the things that Gary Vee, if anybody knows who Gary Vee is, you gotta be everywhere, you gotta do everything. And I'm like, yeah, if I had an effing team of 20 people, sure, of course I could be everywhere, because that's what he's got. So don't think you have to be everywhere. And 3, you have to talk to everyone. Oh, this is truly one of my favorites. Let's just talk to everybody. You know that 3-foot rule. Man, if they're within 3 foot, I'm gonna talk to them every door, every floor. Crap. It's crap, because how do you even know that they're even the right person to be talking to? How do you even know that you want to work with them? How do you even know it's the right fit? How do you even know that they're ready to make that decision? Why are you wasting your time? I loved recently, one of the podcasting group I'm in, they had a great title, and it's called Death by Coffee. Love that, because don't we like to spend all this time doing coffee? But if you're going to do it, which is smart, why not make it actually count? So, why it doesn't work? Because what does it end up in? Unrealistic and burnout. It also is, what I said, no real targeting. And really the key underneath of it all, you have no guiding plan or strategy. That's usually where I dive in with clients, is we're looking at the overall strategy. The problem with like saying, I'm gonna do digital marketing, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do this, is that you've got this sort of blinder approach. in like this shotgun approach, which is why it doesn't work, because you don't have an overall guiding thing. Because what are they trying to sell you? That's what they tell you you're going to need. So of course, instead of looking at it from sort of a global perspective, you know, people are saying, you want to niche down. That is absolutely true, but at some point you've got to get out and look at that big strategic view of everything, because you have to get strategic before you can ever get tactical. So let's dive into what that looks like. That's going to be on the sheet called 4 core pillars. And here's what we're going to dive in them and give you those. And we can break down a lot of these more, but we're just going to fly through these. I'm working on some time here. So, number 1, and here's the key, it starts with everything. You must set yourself up for success from the beginning. I know, you're like, duh, know this, but if we know this, why aren't we doing this? The key is most people don't really set themselves up for success. They don't set themselves up to win from the very beginning. And what do I mean by that? Well, we try to either do everything like I said, or we overcomplicate the whole dang thing. So the idea is simplicity. What does that look like? It looks like very few tools. It looks like very simple tools, and I'll tell you what that looks like, and a very simple process, because you must have all of these things. You must have tools, you must have processes, and you must have resources, but they need to be just a few and very simple. For example, we've got a super fancy, like, I'm going to track all these different things and blah, blah, blah. Why not just use an Excel spreadsheet, which is super simple, and you've already got access to it, like a Google Sheet, or an Open Office, which is free. It's just like Microsoft Office. Again, why pay for what you don't have to pay for? Don't be afraid to pay for what you need to pay for. Why pay for more than you need to? And why overcomplicate it? I'm going to use this sales CRM, and I'm going to, really? Well, you have time to get fancy later. Let's not worry about that. Right now, we're just trying to build the bottom line. So that's the first thing. And B, in simplifying it, you must automate some of it, but not all of it. Because the problem is everybody wants to automate every dang thing. That's great, but where did personal touch go? And we'll talk about that later. Number 2, the next pillar is you must prime your pipeline. Duh, again, big duh. The reason I say big duh is we think we know these things, but if we know these things, why aren't we doing these things? And why aren't we doing them at the capacity? Because I don't care what level the business is at, I can guarantee I go through these 4 core pillars, and somewhere there's a hole. I always like to say, is your business leaky? Or do you have a leaky bucket? Because I bet you do. Here's a little story that I've loved ever since I heard it from Tony Robbins, I don't know, like 20 years ago, was that Michael Jordan never even could make his varsity team. He was rejected. So what did he do? He didn't go out and learn all these fancy super duper tricks and these things and let me smash it in. No, it's foundation, the basic, until he became so unbeatable at the basics. Nobody could absolutely beat him hands down at that. Like that's why he's still an icon in that today. So that's what I'm talking about. We're going to prime the pump, and there's 3 things under priming the pump. Here's how I like to break it down. Like I said, you don't need a giant list. Here's what you need, and I'm going to kind of do them, actually we're going to do them in the order that I would start with. I call it the Thriving 1000. That's really all you need to start with. These are not your super duper fans, but these are your fans, these are your core fans, these are your hot spot, your sweet spot, as I like to call it. That's your Thriving 1000. We can talk more about that if you want to talk to me. 2 is your Hot 100, because you can build an incredible business with just 100 people on your list. And that might sound like a lot to some of you, so if you have to, start with 25. Again, keeping it simple, but these are your super fans. I can actually identify right now in my head, not all 100, but I'm working on building to where that 100 is. These are going to be your ambassadors. They're going to actually push and spread and talk about your brand, and they're going to build you up and make you feel really good, especially when you know you fall down in that pit. And they're done that. Been there in the last couple weeks myself, and all of a sudden, and they'll pick you up. So they are going to be absolutely your superstar cheerleaders. And then finally, your Power 10. These are your stretch people. These are the people that are really your ultimate ideal, like who you either want to make a strategic connection with, who can really drive your business to the next level, who can really move that needle in a way that nobody else can. And you really need to think big. I mean, really big. These are not easy gets. These are the ones that are going to definitely take some nurturing. So your Thriving 1000, your Hot 100, and your Power 10. If you don't know those, that's the very first thing that you need to start working on. Number 3 pillar is, we're almost out of time, so we're going to break. 5-star follow-up. I know we've all heard follow-up. However, this is definitely something people don't do, and here's why. They'll do it, they'll follow up once, twice, 3 times, maybe, even the best ones might follow up 5. But here's what I know, 7 to 15 touches. Touches doesn't necessarily mean a conversation, but it means touches. One of the best I know that does this, and this was not set up, Lori, but just because you came to my mind very first thing, Lori is one of the best that does this. And does the second thing I talk about under this step, which is to set yourself apart by the personal touch. It's what we've lost in this digital world, is the personal touch. And this isn't just, one simple thing. It's going out of your way, especially for your Power 10 and your Hot 100, to really find something personal where you can touch each person. Doing cards is definitely something that most people don't do. I've almost seen nobody do it. It's how I stood out for 10 years when I built my other business where I had an online retail business. Nobody else was doing that. And in 10 years, I think I got like 2 out of that. So that's definitely one way. And number 4, real quick, is the morning magic. This is one of my favorites. It's sort of a productivity tip, but really it really is magic. That's why I call it morning magic. And that is how you start your day. So when you get ready to dive in, do not pick up the social media, do not turn on your computer, and we've heard all this, but here's what you do want to do. You want to do one thing. This is how you're going to set yourself up to win for the day. One thing. What's the one thing? I don't know, it's going to be each different for you, but it's the one single thing that you can do for the day that will move the needle the most on your business. Probably doesn't need to take more than an hour. If it's taking more than an hour, it's probably a dig-on project that needs to be broken down into these, because you could do literally a whole project like this. So you've already won before you even start the rest of your day. If you don't do this, you will get cluttered in a million other different things, and you will be working on somebody else's agenda. So what is the one thing that will move the needle the most on your business? And that will also crush the idea of burnout and will actually move your business more. If you really commit to this, I give you the 5-day challenge. That's one of my 2 homework assignments. Is one in the very back, there's 3 steps. I want you to have 3 actions. You need to define those today before you leave and put deadlines on them, and then figure out where you're going to put them in your calendar. And then I'm going to finally leave you with this. I do have a resource for those that want to get super specific on tactics. I created a resource because I kept seeing this question like literally almost 1,000 times over the past month. And that's how to get more clients. So I did finally create a resource called How to Get More Clients. So if you want that, you can either message me or just stop and talk with me today and make sure that I know, because I don't just blast out to everybody. I hate the blast out. Stop doing that. That's not personal. Other than that, quick questions. I'm happy to answer anything. Yes, sir.
Maybe just a little bit on the dumb side here, but I'm just the number one thing that you said that you do, start your day.
You have to set yourself up for success to win from the very beginning.
What is that process?
Well, it's quite involved. One of the first things I like to do, for sure, is the morning magic minute. Because the morning magic is not really minute. Morning magic, like 60, that's the 60 minutes that you turn everything off, nobody can interrupt you, and you do the one thing that'll move the needle on your business. That's really how you set yourself up for success. But the other keys that I mentioned were simplicity, simple tools, simple resources, and a simple plan. And simple means if it's 10 steps long for the big thing, probably too much. Especially when you're in that core. Most people think they're further in their business than they really are. Most people still, if you don't have a thriving, I don't want to say you don't ever do marketing, but if you don't have that thriving thing where you can sit back, relax, and take a vacation without worrying and stressing, then you're probably still in the traction phase. You're also probably still doing too much. That's a conversation. Anybody else?
What's an example of morning magic where it doesn't involve a computer?
Well, it might involve the computer, but if you're going to involve the computer, then you have to make sure all the other things, notifications, every single other thing is off.
You're focusing on one project.
Literally, it's this streamlined focus. And I've been back and forth on this focus thing and teaching about focus, but I don't know that we all need more focus. We need to learn to refocus, because there's probably still going to be something like a dog outside, something. So the power and the magic comes in refocusing yourself very quickly, learning, and how you do it, you just practice. I mean, I know it's a terrible answer, but it really is. I hated video for a long time. I really did. The more I did have done it, the more comfortable I've gotten. I'm like, I don't really actually hate it. I just hated the process of it. So you can use the computer, but what I would suggest is it's probably not social media unless that's your business.
Right.
So it has to be specific to your business, but it has to be the one thing that will move your business the most. The one thing will move the needle on your business the most. Yes, ma'am.
So, for instance, like a day-to-day thing, it could be Friday's follow-up. I'm going to follow up for
Yes.
that 1 hour only.
Absolutely. Because when I say it moves the needle the most, it could be some other things, but a lot of times we're figuring out how we add that bottom line. And the bottom line, keep in mind too, has to be profit, not just this. So it could be working on how you're going to, tweak it to get more profit versus, just spending. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, it just has to be able to move the needle. And I really like things that add money to the bottom line. It doesn't always have to be that, because sometimes for me, right now, I'm working on a book. It could be that, because here's what I want to say is play the long game. It can't just be the short game. That's the problem with doing this funnel. That's when I say you're operating from a place of weakness, is because we've got this tunnel vision. And that's what it ends up being. So I want you to see it broadly and not just operate from a place of weakness, because it can't just be about the bottom line. It also has to be about brand building and building the story and some other things. Other questions? You can get specific. You throw me in. Okay.